Mark Ruffalo, welcome. Just want to congratulate you, first of all, on your 2 Emmy nominations for The Normal Heart. Nominated for Best Actor in a Movie or Miniseries for the lead role as Ned Weeks, and also you're nominated for producing it. The movie adaptation has sort of been long gestating for this project. I was wondering how and when you came on board, with the project. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I joined it when Ryan Murphy actually got the rights, which is about 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And at that point, he reached out to me and he said that he thought that I would make a good partner with him to do it. I didn't know that he actually had made up his mind to cast me. I thought we were just meeting, and he told me that he wanted me to do it, and he felt that I'd make a good partner, and would I produce it with him, and we would take it around and shop it around and see if we could get it made somewhere.
And what was your familiarity, if any, with the play before you came on board with the film?
It was one of those plays that was so important in my time as a young actor, and it was every young actor worked on it in acting class, and so we really broke it down. We really worked hard on it. It would be months, 2 months. People were working on it in the class, so we really would dig into the material, and so I had a very deep working understanding of that material coming into it.
Joe Mantello played the lead role that you play now on the Broadway, the most recent Broadway version, and of course he's in this production in a different part, also Emmy nominated, by the way. What kind of advice did you get from him since he had played it so many times?
My headline was always, wish we could have. Mark Ruffalo was fine in the part, but wished we'd seen Joe Mantello in it. He's such a gifted actor and director, and the funny thing is we became very close friends working on it, and I asked him, and he said, "I don't have anything to tell you. Actually, I wanted to know if you could help me with doing a film. I've only done theater, and I don't really know what to do on a film set." And that became a back and forth of emails between us, which I thought was very sweet and kind of him. And I mean, he did an incredible job, and he would have been a great Ned Weeks as well. And so it was it was a big blessing to have him be part of it, and to have him embrace me so thoroughly throughout the process. Many times I would sort of look to him like, what do you think? And he would always give me some encouraging piece of not direction, but love, something wonderful. He made me feel at ease in that part very early on.
Now, in addition to working with Joe Mantello, who played the role on stage, you're also working with Larry Kramer, who wrote the screenplay and also wrote the original play. And the character you play, Ned Weeks, is it's inspired by his own experiences. Tell me about working with him to how much you worked with him to work on this character and develop it.
Well, I immediately wanted to spend as much time as possible with him, and so very early on, probably a year or so before we even started shooting, we met. Then as it got closer, we met again, and I ended up spending several days with him, and he was giving me books to read, a lot of his stuff, and I was watching a lot of video, but the time that I spent with Larry was really invaluable, and he made it clear to me that that Ned Weeks was not him. But I couldn't, as I got to know him, and he opened his heart to me and his life to me, I couldn't help but feel that, you know, there was quite a bit of autobiographical material in there, and I started to see something in him that I don't think was ever portrayed in the media before. I don't know if, you know, sort of gave him the title the angriest man in the angriest gay man in the world, or what have you. But my experience of him was he was deeply compassionate. He was funny and charming and charismatic and sensitive. And I'd seen all the videos. You know, I studied him. Anything that was available, I studied. And I began to see there was two sides to Larry Kramer, and one of them hadn't fully ever been sort of exposed, or we hadn't really heard the story of this gentler side of him. And so I pulled on a lot of things. I pulled on physicality. I pulled on some of his vocal qualities. But mostly it was his heart that struck me as the most profound part about him, and his deep and abiding sense of love that he has for his culture.
You're all up for just tons of Emmys all across the technical categories. I don't think we've seen an acting nomination like this since Angels in America. So many of your castmates nominated, especially in supporting actor. As one of the producers and one of the guys starring alongside of all these others, what does that mean to you?
I'm deeply moved by it, just to be frank. It was a very important experience for me, and I think for my fellow actors. And that time in American history hasn't been really well recorded in a modern sense. And so we all knew how important the story was that we were telling. We knew how important it was to so many people who had lost their lives. We knew how important it was to so many people who had lived through this incredibly difficult and tragic time in American history. And so to see it embraced on the level that it has, and I know to the extent with which my fellow actors and everyone on that crew and on our team put themselves out there and made themselves vulnerable and did things that they had never done before and were fearless and courageous. To have all that acknowledged in the way that it has by the height of the success that a television venture like this could have in the Emmys is incredibly satisfying and humbling and moving to me.
You yourself have a history of activism, you know, environmental and equal rights. I'm wondering if that helped you relate to this story and these characters' struggle.
Yeah, there's a dynamic in the activist world. There are Larry Kramers in every movement, and there's kind of a politics and a hierarchy, and there's infighting, and there's power struggles, and so on and so forth. And so I did understand that, and I understand what it takes to make change happen, and what it costs you to do it, and how high the stakes are. Now, you know, I'm dealing with things that aren't as existentially threatening as the AIDS crisis was to them. So I can't say that I know exactly what they went through, but I know the nature of it, and I know the nature of that group dynamic, and I know the nature of people fighting a battle that looks like it's impossible to win. And so I was able to relate to a lot of the material based on my understanding and my experience in that field.
You know, the last few years, we've talked about this with several people in recent years. So many film stars like yourself are finding great projects on TV. Just look at your category alone here. You've got Benedict, Idris, Chiwetel, Billy Bob, Martin, yourself. You're all film stars doing television projects. Why is that line blurring so much these days?
You know, you hear, you constantly hear that now is TV's golden age, and that you'll hear actors, when you're talking amongst other actors, saying all the great stuff is in television now, the great characters, the great writing. You know, could it be that this medium has sort of reached its maturity, and that that this line between film and television that even 10 years ago was very delineated, was clear, has kind of vanished. And I think because of where HBO and Showtime and a lot of the cable networks were able to go with television and tackle language, sexuality, all of these things that used to only be doable in film, all of a sudden has washed away any preconceived notions of what's possible. The other thing is as the film market sort of shrinks, this other market is developing, and a movie like The Normal Heart would never, I don't think, would ever be able to reach the amount of people that it was able to reach with HBO. And so that's alone is a very powerful, compelling reason to be part of such a wonderful medium as television is today.
It's interesting. When the film Normal Heart was shooting, it was actually, it was shooting while the Defense of Marriage Act was being struck down, and we've heard actors talk before about the experience of finding out on set that the DOMA went down. Did that change your perspective on the film going forward after that happened?
The film had a, sometimes you do a project and the stars seem to align for it. From strange things like we need sunlight for this one particular scene and it's been raining all day and we're going to go for it and hope that there's sunlight, and all of a sudden the clouds part and there's the sun. Or we need to get this shot and we need it to be, we can't do it in the rain, and the giant storm is moving in and we don't know if we're going to be able to get it, and the storm holds until we get the shot and till the very last second. So this movie had that kind of grace around it, and you could sense it. And that day there was a beautiful confluence of events. It was the DOMA was being argued, or the decision was coming out. And that was the same day that we were shooting the scene in when they make the most amount of money that the movement had ever made, $50,000, right? And it also happened to be the day that the president of HBO was there, and it also happened to be the day that Larry Kramer was well enough to come and visit us on set, and we hadn't seen him in weeks. And so it all came together in this beautiful moment. We came to work, and the Gay Men's Choir was there, and there was people in their AIDS makeup on, standing around, and Larry was there in a wheelchair, and we got the news, and Larry announced it to the group. And it was one of those beatific sort of moments where you sort of understand what you're doing, its context in the relationship of history, its context in the relationship of the personal, Larry Kramer sitting there in a wheelchair fighting for his life, and and all of the people around you who put their heart and soul into this endeavor. It didn't go lost on any of them, and the fruition that Larry's work had finally, in some way, had come to be recognized, had in some way taken a major step forward. None of that went wasted on anybody. So it was a beautiful, beautiful kind of icing on the cake to a really beautiful production.
It's so good that all of you can realize that when it's going on in the moment, because I'm sure that's difficult when you're shooting all day to have those kinds of moments.
It never happens. Never happened to me. Little things, special little magical things happen, but nothing that had such a historical sort of multi-leveled meaning on a set. It was quite extraordinary, and I'll never forget it.
Well, I want to switch gears a little bit. You've got 2 films out this year. One's already been released, Begin Again, and Foxcatcher's been at Cannes and will be out in America later this year. And both of them seem like they may be getting into this awards circuit later in the year, and you've been down that road before. In fact, a couple of the websites I've seen have you ranked #1 as Best Supporting Actor for Foxcatcher to actually win the Oscar. So, because we probably will be replaying this video over in the Oscar season, tell us about just getting caught up again in that award season with Oscars and Globes and SAG Awards and all that.
I dread it. It's very nerve-wracking, and you get you're sort of in 2 worlds. You're sort of want to see something wonderful like an award happen to you, but at the same time you're sort of trying to not be competitive with your fellow actors who, acting's a very strange thing to sort of line up and say this is better than that and this is better than that, because it's so specific to each role. And so I love the camaraderie that I have with my fellow actors, and I don't like competition in that sense. And so it makes me very uncomfortable, but at the same time, you're on a campaign, and they expect you to be campaigning, and they you have to go do your little speech and show up and do all that stuff, which I understand. I get it, and I have a lot of respect for it. But it's not my thing 100%. What I can say is that if I do get to go there again, I'm going to enjoy it. I made it a point to enjoy it last time. It's rare. I can't even believe that there's even maybe a second shot at it in a career. I never saw myself having the kind of success that I've been blessed with. So, I don't know what to say other than it's tough, and I'm grateful for it happening if it does.
You've had a chance to experience how the Oscar season has sort of evolved over the last decade. Just the idea of an Oscar campaign has sort of exploded in the last 10 to 15 years. I mean, one of your earlier breakthrough films, You Can Count on Me, had Oscar attention and going straight through to The Kids Are All Right, and now Foxcatcher coming up. How much has it changed your experience of it since from that early experience?
Well, You Count on Me, I was sort of watching from the sidelines a little bit. And it was I wasn't inside of it, so all I saw was this kind of magical thing that was happening for this little movie and these people that I loved, Kenny and Laura, and so I didn't get to experience it in the way that they did, or the idea of a campaign, and I would hear them talk about it, and it didn't sound like it was a lot of fun. And so, but when I got to The Kids Are All Right, I got to see it firsthand, and it's, I don't know what it was like in the past. It seems like there's more campaign stops added every year along the road, and it's kind of leading up to the Oscars is just as kind of as important as the Oscars, and has as many events that are important to people in my industry as the Oscars themselves. So I don't know how it's changed. It'll be interesting to be able to compare it from this one. It was just this kind of magical thing that happened with You Can Count on Me, and also to be honest with you, with The Kids Are All Right, I didn't expect that movie to do that. I don't think anybody did. It took forever to even get it made.
I think these smaller and these independent movies rely and count more on awards attention than any other, because that's what, they may not get even noticed by the mass public otherwise.
That's kind of the gift of it, and we've been seeing more of these movies being honored this way. And yes, that is a blessing for the smaller films that people may not be able to see, or may not come to their local, Cineplex or multiplex. But because of the awards, they get a nice little boost into the mainstream media, and little movies like You Can Count on Me and The Kids Are All Right have their little day in the sun, which is a huge blessing.
I want to ask you along these lines. I'm guessing you've been an Academy member for a while now.
It was funny. I got an invitation to become an Academy member just before You Can Count on Me, and it's strange. Somebody nominates you, and it came to me, me? In the Academy? I haven't even done anything. They didn't even know who I am at this time, And there was somebody who's never revealed themselves to me who came out and nominated me to be part of the Academy. And so it's been since then that I have been a member of the Academy.
Well, I ask this to most members that I get a chance to talk to, and I'd love to get your take. And you don't have to reveal any specific names if you don't want to, but you talked about competition, especially among actors. I'm wondering, when you've got that nominating ballot, or you've got that final ballot to vote for winners, what kind of crosses through your mind? What determines who will get a Mark Ruffalo vote? What do they have to do? What kind of performances? What grabs your attention?
Bravery, soul, just pure craft, or something that's just magical beyond words, sort of those performances that leave you in wonder of film and the possibilities of it, and the possibilities of people acting in it. But it's usually something that strikes me in a deep kind of way, in a emotional way, I would say.
Do you ever just stare at a category and just can't decide?
To be honest with you, I've had to go to my wife for tiebreakers.
I've got it down to A and B. Which one would you pick?
Help me. Yes.
Now, in addition to potential award season, the Emmys coming up, the Oscars coming up next year, you're also caught up in one of the biggest fandoms in current film. Working on the Avengers films, which is one of the biggest franchises in the world. I'm wondering what kind of adjustment it is to go from a more intimate project like a Foxcatcher or a Normal Heart to that big huge set pieces and action scenes and visual effects and all that.
it's definitely different, and but each film is kind of different, and each film has its own sort of problems to work out. It has its own sort of mood, has its own sort of work pace, and so they're all so different from each other. This thing has been such a phenomenon, and the folks that I'm working with, I really we've developed a really nice relationship over the years. I've never been in anything that had a sequel to it, and so and Marvel really takes care of us, and they really do. Jeremy Lachum and Kevin Feige and of course Joss Whedon, Patty Witcher, they really do listen to the actor, and they really do love the actor and respect the actor, and they respect what we do and how we do it. And so it's a lot of fun going there because there's a lot of time. We have the best of everything. It's as close as I will ever get to being kind of a little quasi rock star in a world that that is sort of very fleeting and fanciful, but not deeply meaningful. And so I just never saw myself in that world. And I'm 47 years old. I want to look back at my life and enjoy it, and say that I enjoyed it. And so that's been what I've been doing. I've been enjoying every second of it, and taking it kind of as it comes. And it's been coming really beautifully. And Joss Whedon's a great director and a really great writer, so we get to do some wonderful stuff in a big, giant Hollywood extravaganza.
Any talk yet of a separate Hulk movie like some of these other guys and girls are getting?
Please, I don't know. It went from an absolutely not to a maybe in the past few years. I think it's a tough nut to crack, honestly. And they've already done a couple of them. There's another issue is Universal holds the rights to an independent Hulk film. And so there's a lot in the mix that make it difficult. I think it's not as easy as some of the other ones just to pick up and take off with, and it's tough to tell a story about a guy who doesn't want you to do the exact thing that you want him to do, and keep it interesting and compelling. So. The people that I follow in this part, I have a huge amount of admiration for, and until I think we can come up with something that's different enough, I don't think it should be touched.
Yeah, I called my brother a few minutes ago, right before this chat. It's his birthday today, and he's a big fan of all that stuff. And he said to ask you if you knew this trivia. You are only the second person ever to play the Hulk twice.
Somebody else told me that the other day. First of all, happy birthday, and I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's true. I want to keep my good luck streak going. I don't want to push it. It's pretty nice.
We have a question in our chat room. One last question from Charles Chershio. I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name. He says he's been a longtime fan. And he wants to know who your influences were sort of starting out.
To be totally honest with you, Marlon Brando was a big influence on me as a young actor. I didn't even know who he was. And everyone in school would talk about it. But when I was a little boy, about 8 years old, maybe 9 years old, my grandmother would let me sneak down from my bedroom and let me sit on the couch and watch TV with her. And this one night she said to me, "Hey, there's a movie on tonight, and it's a very special movie, and come down and watch it. It's a television world premiere of it." And I watched it, and I saw this actor doing something that I had never seen anyone do on television. Now, when you're 8 years old, television is a very abstract thing. I didn't really understand what acting was totally, but I saw him. Well, you're Foxy first, you know. I saw, you know, and I said to him, I turned to my grandma. I was like, "Who is that? What is he doing?" And she said the name, but it didn't click with me. I mean, I didn't know who anyone was. And I said, and she said, he's an actor. I said, I want to do that. And so years later, I was a jock and I surfer and skate, all this stuff. But like somewhere inside me was this little 8-year-old boy. I was like, I want to be an actor, but you can't make it as an actor. I don't know where to start. I did a play. I went to acting school. Marlon Brando. You don't know who Marlon? No, I don't know who Marlon Brando is. Blah blah blah. Finally, one of my friends shows up at my house with a Beta VHS, big giant Beta recorder. You know, carries it in, plops it down, plugs it into the television, and we start watching Streetcar Named Desire. And I'm sitting there, and I swear to you, I hadn't seen that movie or heard of that movie or knew what that movie was since I was 8 years old. And I'm sitting there watching it, and it's all coming back to me. And then, of course, it just became a rush of finding out as much as I could about him, watching everything that I could see about him. And yeah, he's been a big influence. I mean, there's been a lot of other ones. Marcello Mastroianni is a big one for me. Robert Downey Jr. There's Sean Penn. I've had the greats. Some of them.
Well, Mark, good luck at the Emmys. You got 2 nominations coming up in here in a few weeks. I know you're overseas, but I hope you're going to get to make the ceremony.
Oh, I'll be there. Definitely, I'll be there.
Well, good luck, and thanks for joining us, especially through all the technical issues.
No, thank you for being patient with me, and thanks to all the folks there who've had to go through this 3 times now. So long.